Series. My name is Dirk Dieters. I'm the Executive Director of the Fremont Group. I'll be your presenter today. In this series, we examine the 6 responsibilities of the small business owner. We're up to number 4, and this one is about selling. In the book, Minding My Own Business, we identify the 6 responsibilities of the small business owners. The first responsibility is you have to make a minimum mandatory percentage of profit. The second responsibility is to create cost controls to assure that that minimum mandatory percentage of profit is produced. Your third responsibility is then to create an organizational structure that is responsible and held accountable for and has incentives to enforce the cost controls so that that minimum mandatory percentage of profit is produced. The fourth responsibility, which is what we're going to look at today, is selling internally and externally. We look at one of these responsibilities every 2 months, this one being the 4th. This is our main webinar for this 2-month period. And then following this each week, we'll examine different aspects of what we're going to cover in here today. But basically, the way we look at it, there's 3 different types of selling. There is internal selling, external selling, and selling of your business. The Fremont Group is a nonprofit organization, and we serve small to mid-sized business owners and have been doing so for approximately 20 years. We consist of success partners, which are people who have been there, done that. They're assigned to a client. They meet with the client and they put together whatever needs to be done to help that client attain their goals. Sometimes it's first simply identifying what their goals are and creating focus to do so. We also have an accounting department. We found that many small business owners simply don't get the information that they need from their accounting, and they'll also have turnover or incompetency, quite frankly, in their bookkeeping. And so we have an outsourced accounting department, which we can guarantee actually saves money for the business. We also have referrals we can give for taxes and loans and other simply contacts that we've developed over the year. The Fremont Group has a website. Please visit that at www.tfginfo.org. And we have a Patreon site. If you aren't familiar with Patreon, please go there. Our Patreon site is basically our blog. All of our clients are on our Patreon site. This webinar, as do all of the 6 main webinars, go onto that site for our clients only and for our patrons. And we also have a weekly blog, and then all of the other intermediate webinars that we do are also posted in there also. We do a bi-weekly newsletter, which I hope that if you go to our website, you will sign up for and subscribe. And of course, we do these webinars amongst other services. So let's get started. External selling. This is selling outside of the business. This is what most people understand as selling. You are the owner of your company. You are the best representative of your company. And in a small business, quite often there will be customers, particularly major customers, who before they make any kind of a major purchase are going to want to meet the owner, and you are going to have to sell them. External selling is obviously a part of your job, and chances are if you weren't good at it, you wouldn't still be in business. You're probably better at it than you think you are. It starts with having a USP, a unique selling proposition. How are you going, what is it that makes your business different? Why, and answer, well, let's back up. Answer this question. Why should someone buy from you instead of from your competitors? Don't use the word price and don't use the word quality. And then write out in 10 to 20 words, why should someone buy from you instead of from your competitor? What makes you unique? Tie that down. Talk to your people, talk to your customers, talk to other people, and really develop out a USP, your unique selling proposition. And then put that everywhere ingrain it into your employees, ingrain it into your letterhead, into your business cards, posters, whatever it is that you do for promotion. That USP should constantly be communicated, and there should be no one in your business that doesn't know what that USP is and shouldn't be willing to repeat that to anyone external from your company. And this can go a long way to create focus within the organization as to what it is and why someone should buy from you, sort of the elevator pitch, so to speak, for selling. You must be able to communicate that external selling. Selling and sales are a system. Just like your production, sales are a system. And with a success partner, you can lay out the steps within that system. Basically, there are 4 parts to it, regardless of your type of industry. The first is obtaining leads. How do you generate leads? The second is how do you qualify those leads? Third, how do you close those leads? And then lastly, how do you use your customer service as part of your sales? So if we look at those 4 stages, every customer has to be taken through those stages. As far as identifying leads, this is a very low-level function. It can be done by a very low-level, in other words, low-paid person. You certainly don't want your high-paid salespeople going out trying to identify leads. That's a waste of their talents and abilities. And you shouldn't be doing it. You should have a system that generates leads. You can get them from books, you get them from lists, you get them from, well, whatever your industry has it. Then you've identified these leads. And it should be quantified. The people responsible for generating leads should have a quota. You need to identify 25 new names a day, a month, a year, whatever it is. The next stage, after they're identified, then they have to be qualified. And so you move through this funnel. The qualification of leads is something that's arbitrary to your business. Maybe it's someone that uses your types of products and is in the market to buy your products in the next 6 months, whatever. Come up with a clear definition of what a qualified lead is. And then how are you going to qualify that? Now, this is a next step up, but it's still not to your high-level salespeople. This is still an administrative type of function. Someone calling them up or whatever and saying, hey, are you going to be buying any more widgets in the next year? I don't know, whatever. Or just looking at whatever it might be in your particular industry. But how do you have someone then identify the leads that are become qualified because they've met your criteria? Once you've qualified those leads, then they go to your real high-level salespeople. If you think about it, and these are your high-level people, the people who can close. Your closers in your sales will be a function of how many qualified leads they can hit a day. For example, if you have people, outside salespeople, that go around and make calls on people, if they're spending all of their time dropping in on people to see if there might be a qualified lead or this or that, you're not making very good use of their time. They may only be seeing 1 or 2 qualified leads a day, a week, a month, whatever your industry would have. On the other hand, through a pre-qualification of those leads, so that all of their time was focused on qualified leads, you could double or triple their productivity. They make more money, you make more money, everybody makes more money, everybody's happy. That's a good thing. So your closers work specifically on your qualified leads. And they're the ones that make the big bucks because they're making big bucks for your company. Often overlooked is the 4th stage of external selling, which is customer service. You can have your good closing salespeople follow up on all of their existing customers all the time. They love doing that, matter of fact, because it's easy and they already get along with them, and it's easy sales and so on and so forth. But it's not generating new work. It also runs a risk. The risk being that the customer will bond to your salesperson instead of to the company. If you have a proper sales system, someone has identified the lead, someone else has qualified the lead, and this person has simply closed the lead and then gone on. They get their big commissions and their big money from those new account things that they bring in. You should not be paying them the same amount for simply getting more orders out of their existing customers, or all they're going to do is go play golf with these guys. Instead, your customer service department then comes into play. Customer service is the follow-up, it's the delivery, it's the making sure things are there, they're taken care of, and so on and so forth. They know the USP, it's hit on every invoice, it's hit on every contact, and they try to generate additional sales, of which you can figure out how you want to compensate whom from, but you want your good closing salespeople in front of new people as often as possible. And your customer service department is a sales department that does this. Now, if your job is to sell externally, how are you doing that? As I've said, there are going to be some customers that you're going to have to give support to because they're going to want to talk to the owner. That's all there is to it. Be careful that you don't cut the salesperson out of it. You should be the one that's giving advice and helping and all that sort of stuff with your customer, but then it's turned back to the salesperson to actually write up to the order. So your external selling is a sales system, and with a success partner of ours, you can sit down and you can delineate out what that system is, find out where the bottlenecks are, create your closes, your quotas in each different level to accomplish the results that you have to have. What are the results you have to have? Well, that's where you go back to your original budget, as we've talked about earlier. What is the sales level that's going to be required to produce the bottom line that you need to have to make your business work? So that's what we're talking about when we talk about external selling. Staying with the theme of external selling, when you're selling to external selling is always selling to customers. And the reason this is a separate slide is because I really want this point of emphasis to come out of it. And that is, you want to make sure that your customers are bonding to your company, or possibly not necessarily even to yourself. They should be bonding to your company, and certainly not to a salesperson. If you stop and think about where your salesperson came from, you probably might very well have hired them from somebody else because they had all these contacts they were going to bring with them, and you're going to make you a bunch of money. Well, they can do that to somebody else too and take your customers if you have a system that allows your customers to bond to the salesperson. The customers need to bond to the system, the company that's being generated. Again, not even necessarily to yourself if you're ever thinking of leaving the business yourself and selling it. That's one of the red flags for a buyer, is if the customers are all going to leave if the owner leaves. And so focus on those customers. You need to know, when you're dealing with a customer, what is their problem? What is the problem you are trying to solve? That's what you're in the business of doing. You're in the business of solving your customer's problem with your product. That means you have to listen to your customers. And that's the best trait you can have of one of your salespeople. Listen to your customers. What is their problem? Just to give you a little anecdote, we had and discussed it, there was a wholesaling firm that wanted to wholesale out their product. I don't want to get directly into it, but what they found was that their customers, who were general contractors, wanted the materials installed. Their problem was, how do I find an installer and get that done? So by expanding their business so that they would also bring a package of not only the wholesale materials but also the installers of the materials. Then he was able to basically double his business or more, and create and solve his customers' problem. So always look for your customers' problems. If you don't know what they are, ask them. You might be surprised at the answer. A very important aspect of selling is pricing. Pricing your product is an art in itself. We're going to look at 4 different areas of pricing right now quite quickly, and I believe we will be doing follow-up webinars on each one of these. First of all is in your sales, you are building your profit and loss statement. What do I mean by that? Well, every time you make a sale, every invoice that goes out goes to your top line, and that goes into your sales on your profit and loss statement. The cost of the items that are on that invoice go into your cost of goods on your profit and loss statement. And every time you make a sale, then you are building the top half of your profit and loss statement. To get into it a little deeper, which is beyond this one here, but then every time you pay a bill for overhead, you are building the second half of your profit and loss statement. But you build your profit and loss statement. That means you control it. You don't allow your customers to control your profit and loss statement. You control your profit and loss statement. So you need to know what your cost of goods, what does it cost you to do a job? What does it cost you to sell an item? What is the real cost that is there? If you are a contractor type person okay, you've got to go out and actually bid a job or whatever, the bid is not the cost of the job. The cost of the job is what it actually costs you to do it. And so many people put a fudge factor in, just to make sure I'm okay. That's just lying to yourself and kidding yourself. What does it really cost you to do the job? What does it cost you to make the sale? Not including the sales costs. They're a separate item, but they have to be factored in. But you build that profit and loss statement from each one of your sales. And there's a direct tie back then to your budget and your pricing. Now, if we move on, what is the effect of a price increase versus a price decrease? If you want to take the time, call me. We'll be glad to go through it. I have a really nice little spreadsheet that with a little, I don't know if it's actually a macro or not, but it shows you, okay, if we raised our sales prices, say you choose the percent, 10%, okay, how much work would we then lose? Okay, right now my things cost $100. I'm going to now have them cost $110. How much per sales will we lose? Say we're going to lose 10%, okay? You put those two numbers in there, and it's almost impossible for you to come out behind and lose enough sales to make a price increase not worth it. On the other hand, if you drop your price by, say, 10%, it's almost impossible to increase your sales enough to make up for the drop in price. Now, that is something you should always keep in mind when you are thinking about, changing prices and so on. Now, there are reasons to do that, okay, and we'll get to those in a second. But the effect of a price increase, unless you have just a straight commodity where what the economist calls an inelastic demand, in other words, a very small increase in price will wipe out all your sales, okay, or so on, or a very small decrease would significantly increase your sales, which is less likely, frankly. But that elasticity of demand is what determines that. But in most all businesses, it's almost impossible to lose money by increasing sales. Furthermore, or by increasing your pricing. Furthermore, okay, you increase your price, okay, you get that much more on every sale, but you get fewer sales. Well, you know what? That means it's easier to do it. You don't have as much risk. You don't have as much volume. You don't have as many jobs you have to do. You don't have whatever it might be. It doesn't matter. It's simply an easier and more efficient way of doing it, particularly in small businesses. Small businesses typically exist because the big businesses don't want to serve that market. It's just not worth it to them. And if you're going to compete, therefore, since you're not going to have to compete against those bigger businesses, you can have higher margins than those bigger businesses can be because you're doing smaller jobs. Discounting, that is a whole another game into itself. There are times when you want to discount some items simply to move them and create cash flow. In a small store, for example, you may have A, B, and C inventory items, and those C inventory items sit there forever. Well, maybe it'd be a good idea to always discount those and just try to keep them moving so that your money isn't tied up in that inventory. On the other hand, we do have one client who feels that one of their real USP, their unique selling propositions, is that they always have those C inventory items. So you have to weigh your different things. But the simple discounting things can be dangerous. And let me give you an example of what can happen. Let's say you're really trying to get a sale, and somebody says, "Hey, what can you do on your price? Can you discount your price for me?" This is a real test for you. Let me tell a little analogy, okay? McDonald's clearly doesn't have the best hamburger. There's no way they have the best hamburger, okay? But what would happen one day if you walked into McDonald's and instead of getting that little round hamburger that you get, they put in front of you this great big steakhouse steak burger for the same price and said, this is what we have today. Well, at first the customer would go, "Oh, this is really neat." And that was the same price as the other ones. Wow. But then they'd start saying, "Well, why can't I have that every time?" Or what's going on? Or what if there's an inconsistency of quality, okay, where sometimes you got really good ones for that price, but sometimes you didn't. Quality often is the perception of consistency. If you get the same thing each time, no one can say that the quality is bad. It is what it is. But you can upset your customers by simply lowering the price. The other thing that happens is they always expect that price the next time. And they will be upset and actually leave you if you don't do it. You can discount your price, but it is never by just lowering the price to get a job. What you do is you take something else off the table. For example, okay, we're going to do that job for $5,000. Oh, okay, you need to have it lower. Well, I could do it lower. Here's what we could do. I could give you for $4,500 if we only give you a 1-year warranty instead of a 3-year warranty. Or if we use these products instead of this product. Or if we can do it on our time schedule instead of when it has to be done. Take something off the table to justify the reduction in price. If you don't take something off the table, they're just assuming that you are gouging them with your regular price. There's an expression for that I won't use, if you're just dickering over price. Don't ever dicker over price. Dicker over what will go into it and what you can take off the table to justify a reduction in the price. Lastly is break-even pricing. Break-even pricing is unique upon itself. It's a really powerful tool that particularly larger companies use, but the analogy is spread down and people can use it all around. And we do an entire webinar on break-even pricing, so I don't want to beat it to death. But basically, what it means is you have different profit centers. Let's say you have profit center A and profit center B, okay? The allocation of, then you have to, when you price, your price has to include the cost of the good the allocation of overhead that you're putting into that good, and the profit you want to make off of that good or job or whatever it is. Well, allocation of overhead is a discretionary thing. You can allocate your overhead into whatever profit center you want. If you have profit center A and profit center B, if profit center A is really good for you, maybe you could put all of your overhead into that profit center and pricing, so that if you never made a sale from B, you know your overhead is covered plus your profit and so on. But then now with B, we have a real pricing advantage, because in the pricing formula for profit center B, you don't have to charge for any overhead. And this can give you a competitive advantage against other companies that have to put the overhead into that profit center. And again, we do go through this at length in a separate one. I don't want to really beat it to death, but this is very, very powerful. You have to know where your break-evens are to do it. Your break-evens are an incredibly important thing to know. You cannot price until you know what your company break-even is by profit center. That is something that, because if you don't reach your break-even within one profit center, you're going to have to increase the allocation of overhead somewhere else. It's a relatively sophisticated concept, but it does apply and can be useful in small businesses. And like I said, we'll get to that more in one of our subsequent ones. But profit center break-even pricing is an extremely, extremely powerful way of becoming more competitive. If you think about, for example, like a Home Depot that wants to put, it's got a competitor down the road that sells paint, I don't know, whatever, okay? Well, they could move all of their overhead into other sections of their company and put no overhead into their paint pricing, undersell the paint company until they go out of business, and then reallocate the overhead so that they're, when they don't have the competitor, and they get the extra sales. Frankly, it's not even completely legal, but that's done every day, okay? And that's something and a tool that you should have, another arrow in your quiver that you can use in pricing. Next, we get to internal selling. We've covered all the different aspects of external selling, which basically are selling outside your company. Now we have internal selling. What is internal selling? Well, if you've followed along in our webinars, and if you've followed along in Minding My Own Business and so on, you know that you've had to create an organizational structure that is held accountable and create and incentivized to produce the results that you have identified and enforce the cost controls that you have created so that the minimum mandatory percentage of profit is produced. Every interaction with an employee is a sales meeting. You are selling them on why they should do their job, which is to produce the results that you have agreed upon. Every time you talk to somebody, you are selling them on what needs to be done. Every meeting that you have is a sales meeting to sell them and get them excited about why they should do their job. A reminder, again, I'll say it again, their job is to produce the results that you have identified in your organizational structure. What are the results they're supposed to do? What's in it for them to do so? Look at each one of your employees as a separate business entity, and they have to produce the result that you've identified for them. And so every time you're interacting with them, how can I help them do so? And most of the time, this is done through focus. Focus them constantly. If you go back, we identified the 3 types of communications. The daily communication, that huddle, should always have a focus point. What are we trying to get them to do today, and how can we not only incentivize them to do it, but in a way hold them accountable if they don't? What is the thing we want to accomplish today? They say it takes X number of repetitions to get something actually through to somebody. Well, create your focus point, create your focus point. This is your steering wheel of the company, of how you're going to drive their interactions. And Then after that has been ingrained in them, change to the next focus point. The USP is a perfect example of that. No one should be able to leave one of your huddles until they can repeat the USP, because you want that repeated over and over again, not only to themselves in their minds, but you want them to tell their customers that also. And anyone that might have any possibility of a customer interaction needs to know that USP by verbatim and discussion. Okay, so you have to look at each one of your interactions with employees, every one of your meetings and so on, as a sales opportunity. You are selling them on doing their job. There is one more type of selling that we're going to talk about briefly here that does tie in, and that is the selling of your company. Your job as the owner of the company is to continually increase shareholder value. Continually increase shareholder value. It's not to collect some money. It's not to do this. It's not to discipline an employee. It's not to make an order. It's not to meet with a salesperson. It's to increase shareholder value, which is done through many of those things, but more likely it is building your company into a system that converts the market demand for your goods and services into cash in the bank. And the more you work on that system, and the less you are held hostage by any employee or yourself being the only person that can perform some function that can't be changed, you're not building the value of your company. If you're truly interested in someday cashing out and making the money that you think your company is worth, you really need to focus your job on continually increasing shareholder value. You need to know what your company is worth now. You need to know what your value drivers are that you can expand upon to make it worth more. You need to know what levels in your industry will attract real buyers. For most small businesses with a person working in it, they are never going to sell their business. They think they are, but they never are really going to sell their business. They're most likely buyers, if they exit, are either their employees or a competitor. And oftentimes, these people want you to stay on for a while and have to reach certain levels for you to get the rest of the money. And so you're not really selling your business. Selling your business means someone's writing you a check and you're leaving. Why would they do so? Because they believe that they can run it better than you, but they know the amount of free cash, the amount that is being produced right now. They know how much that the profit is being generated by systems, procedures, and controls, and not by any individual person. And all of this needs to be evaluated constantly. This is a whole separate section of what our success partners are able to do. We look at those different areas and the different value drivers that you have in your business, and we look at your different ratios and then create a plan. It really, realistically, for any person that's working within a business to make a real sell, to really sell their company for what they deserve to get out of it, for all of the sweat equity that they have in it and all of the brain damage they've gone through, it takes at least 2 to 3 years of planning and working on increasing shareholder value to be able to do so. So don't think that, oh, okay, when I'm ready to sell my business, I'll start worrying about it. No, you need to start it every day, because this is what your job is. So, in summary, we have looked at the 3 different types of selling: internal, external, and selling your business. We are going to be following it up weekly with webinars on many of these different aspects of it. To remind you, the Fremont Group is a small business management consulting firm. It consists of, we are a nonprofit. We consist of people that have been there and done that, that are experienced and work with you. We work mostly now remotely by Zoom conferences. However, initially it certainly can be worthwhile to invest in bringing the person in for a few days to really meet and get to know your business. That can be worthwhile. But after that, we do almost everything by Zoom, which keeps our costs way, way down. It keeps our overhead out of the picture so that you can get the benefit of what we can do. Take a look at us at our website, admin@tfginfo.org. Give us a call anytime. We'll be glad to talk to anybody. You can do an exploratory consultation off of our website. Just go ahead and schedule one. They're free. We spend a half an hour. We have some proprietary diagnostic materials that we go through to compare your business and identify strengths and weaknesses and so on, and get to know you a little bit and to give you a little clearer idea of where your greatest benefit could come from looking at different areas of your company. You can send us an email at admin@tfginfo.org, and visit our Patreon site, which is our blog and has the webinars and all those sorts of materials on there. We hope you'll become a patron. It's very inexpensive. And there you have access to all of the materials and webinars that we have going. So again, my name is Dirk Dieters. I'm the Executive Director of the Fremont Group. I'm also the author of Minding My Own Business. And this has been our fourth responsibility, our sales webinar from the Minding My Own Business series. We hope to hear from you. Thank you.